I will never forget that night. The rain had just stopped, and the smell of wet soil clung to the air as I pulled into our farm's driveway. I hadn't planned to come. I was supposed to be at my sister's place, but something inside me told me to turn around. My gut twisted, my heart raced. When I stepped into the barn, I froze. There they were. My husband, the man I trusted with every corner of my soul, and his ex, the woman he swore was nothing but a ghost from the past. Their laughter echoed against the wooden beams, sharp and cruel in my ears. He touched her face the way he used to touch mine, tender but guilty. My body went cold. Really? My voice cracked as it left me, sharp but trembling. They jerked around like children caught stealing. His face drained of color, but hers, she smirked. That smirk cut through me deeper than any blade. "You weren't supposed to see this," he whispered. And just like that, my world shattered. I stood in the doorway, soaking wet, my breath shaking, while they stood there, entangled in betrayal on the very land my father-in-law left us. I didn't scream. Not yet. I walked out, straight to my car, my mind spinning with anger and humiliation. I drove through the night, tears blinding me, until I reached a house I hadn't visited in years. Her father's house. Yes, her father. A man who had once warned me, "My daughter doesn't know loyalty. She ruins everything she touches." I never believed him. But tonight, I needed him. He opened the door, surprised but calm, as if he had been waiting for me all along. When I told him what I saw, his eyes darkened with something heavy: shame, regret, and fury. He grabbed his coat without a word. Minutes later, we were standing side by side in that barn again. My husband's arms still lingered around her, like he couldn't decide which side to face. The silence cut like glass. Her father's voice thundered, "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The smirk vanished from her face. My husband stammered, reaching for excuses, but I didn't let him. I looked straight at her and said, "If you think you've won, you should know he was never faithful, not even to you." Their eyes widened. I hadn't meant to say it, but it slipped out. Because buried deep in my phone was a photo, one I never understood. Until now. And as their faces twisted with confusion and fear, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about secrets neither of them thought I knew. I thought I had lost everything. But that night, I understood something else. The truth was only beginning to surface. I wasn't always this broken. Once, I was the kind of woman people pointed at and said, "She has it all." A strong marriage, a beautiful home, a husband who seemed devoted. But behind closed doors, the cracks were always there. I just chose not to see them. I grew up on a small farm, the youngest daughter of a family that believed in hard work and quiet resilience. My parents didn't leave me wealth, but they left me strength. Still, I carried one flaw with me into adulthood. I wanted so badly to be loved that I ignored every warning sign. When I met him, he seemed like a dream. Charming, confident, always making me feel like I was the only one in the room. I overlooked the way his phone was always face down. I overlooked how he still kept photos of her, his ex, tucked away in boxes he never let me open. I thought marriage would erase her shadow, but her name lingered like a ghost in every argument we had. Years passed. I gave everything. I worked beside him on the farm. I built a life that was supposed to be ours. Yet deep down, I always felt replaceable. As if I was only a substitute for the woman he could never quite forget. That's why when I caught them, it wasn't just betrayal. It was confirmation of a fear I had carried for years. And yet, there's something they don't know. Months ago, while cleaning out the old attic, I found an envelope tucked inside one of his boxes. At first, I thought it was just more of their past love letters, the kind I had trained myself not to read. But this wasn't a letter. It was a hospital record. Her name, his name. And something that made my blood run cold, a child's name, listed under both of theirs. I confronted him then, but he swore it was nothing. Old paperwork, a mistake, forget it. And like a fool, I believed him. Now after what I saw in that barn, I don't believe in mistakes anymore. The way her eyes darted when I mentioned faithfulness, the way he went pale. They know something they've hidden from me for years. And that child's name, it keeps haunting me. I never found out what happened to him. No records, no trace, just a name and a date. I used to think my weakness was loving too much. But maybe my real weakness was not demanding the truth sooner. That night, as I sat alone in the silence of my car after confronting them, my hands shook not from heartbreak but from resolve. I wasn't going to be the quiet, loyal wife anymore. If they had secrets buried, I was going to dig them up, even if it destroyed me. Because somewhere deep down, I knew that child's name was the key to everything. Our farm was never just land, it was the stage for everything. Our laughter, our fights, our promises, and now, our betrayal. It sat on the edge of town, acres of fields that stretched into the horizon, with the old barn in the center like a beating heart. That barn had seen more of our marriage than anyone else ever had. We stored hay there, threw summer parties there, even celebrated our anniversary once under its roof with fairy lights strung across the beams. And now, every time I stepped inside, it smelled like lies. After the confrontation, I avoided the barn for days. I stayed in the farmhouse, wandering from room to room like a ghost. The kitchen where I cooked his favorite meals. The porch where we planned our future. The bedroom where he swore he loved me. Each corner whispered reminders I didn't want to hear. But the farm didn't let me hide. People in town always had sharp eyes and sharper tongues. They saw him and her together before I did, at the grocery store, at the cafe by the church. They didn't tell me, of course. Pity is a poison, and no one wants to be the one holding the cup. One morning, I stepped outside to find her car parked right by the barn again. Bold, as if she owned the place. My chest burned, but I didn't confront her. Instead, I followed quietly, keeping distance, watching her walk inside. She wasn't alone. I heard voices, muffled but urgent. Hers, his. And then another, low, male and unfamiliar. I froze, pressing myself against the wooden wall, listening. "Does she know?" the man asked. "Not yet," my husband's voice replied. "She's suspicious," the woman snapped. "Keep your mouth shut," he hissed. "If she finds out about the will." The rest of his words were drowned out by the slam of a door inside. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. The will? What will? I didn't stay to find out. I rushed back to the house, my legs shaking so badly I nearly tripped on the porch steps. That night, lying awake in bed, I replayed every word I heard. The farm, the will, secrets buried right under my feet. I thought betrayal was the worst thing he could do to me. But now I realized, this wasn't just about love. This was about ownership, power, maybe even money. And the worst part? If there was a will, then someone else's hands were reaching for what I thought was ours. The farm, the very place that carried my family's blood and sweat, might not even belong to me. She always knew how to make me feel small. Even before that night in the barn, her presence haunted me. The way people compared us, the way her name slipped from his lips in his sleep. I told myself she was just a shadow, but now she stood in flesh and blood, claiming what was mine. Her name was whispered in town like a storm rolling in, charming, cunning, dangerous. Everyone knew she left chaos wherever she went, and still, he let her back into our lives. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at my table. My table. She stirred a cup of coffee like she lived there, her legs crossed, a smile playing at her lips. He sat across from her, leaning forward as if the world disappeared when she spoke. I stopped in the doorway, my voice sharp. "What is she doing here?" Neither of them flinched. He looked at me with irritation, not guilt. "We need to discuss some paperwork." "What paperwork?" I demanded. "The farm," she answered smoothly, her eyes glinting. "It doesn't really belong to you, you know?" My breath caught. She slid a folder across the table, and though I refused to touch it, the bold letters on the first page burned into my mind. Last will and testament. It wasn't my name on it. It wasn't his, either. It was hers. My knees nearly buckled, but I steadied myself against the counter. He avoided my eyes, his silence more damning than any confession. "This is my father's legacy," I said through clenched teeth. She tilted her head, almost pitying. "No, sweetheart, it was never meant for you. My father left it to me, and your husband has been helping me claim what's mine." Her words struck harder than any slap. He didn't deny it. Instead, he stood, walked to her side, and placed his hand on her shoulder. That single gesture told me everything. They weren't just lovers, they were partners. Partners in betrayal. I couldn't breathe. The room spun, my chest tightened. They were dismantling not just my marriage, but my very foundation, my home, my family's land, my future. And then she twisted the knife deeper. You know, it's funny, she said, sipping her coffee like we weren't talking about the ruin of my life. My father never trusted me with this land, but with your husband by my side, he doesn't have to. That's when I saw it, his signature at the bottom of a notarized page. He hadn't just betrayed me with his body, he had betrayed me with ink, with law, with loyalty he promised to me. I stumbled back, my voice shaking. How could you? For the first time he looked at me. No love, no regret, only cold calculation. You never understood, he said. This farm was never truly yours. It's time you faced reality. The kitchen felt smaller, suffocating. I wanted to scream, to tear the papers apart, to claw the smug smile off her face. But instead, I stood frozen, tears blurring my vision. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about losing him. I was in danger of losing everything. I thought the betrayal would stay inside our walls, contained within whispers and signed papers. I was wrong. It happened at the town hall meeting. Every month, local farmers gathered to discuss land use, taxes, and the upcoming harvest festival. I almost didn't go that evening. My heart was still raw, and I wasn't ready to face the curious eyes of neighbors. But something inside me told me to stand tall, to show them I wasn't broken. When I walked in, heads turned. I felt their gazes crawl over me, heavy with questions they wouldn't dare ask aloud. I forced a smile, clutching my notebook like armor. For a moment, I thought I could survive the night. Until I saw them. He stood at the front with her at his side, their bodies angled close, their whispers too intimate. My stomach twisted, but I sat down quietly, praying no one noticed the way my hands trembled. Then the meeting began, and the nightmare unfolded. The chairperson introduced them with a smile that cut me open. We have some news to share. The rightful heir to the Miller farm is here tonight, along with her partner, who has graciously agreed to help manage the land. My heart stopped. Her name rang out like a victory bell, echoing through the hall. I wanted to vanish. She stepped forward, radiant in her confidence, clutching that same folder I'd seen at my kitchen table. With a sickening grace, she addressed the room. For years, this land has been under misplaced ownership, but my father's will makes it clear. The farm is mine, and together with him, she placed her hand on my husband's arm, we will restore it to its rightful future. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Murmurs followed, sharp and pitying. I felt every stare burn into me. Some looked shocked, others smug, but all of them knew what this meant. I had been replaced, both in love and in legacy. I tried to rise, to speak, but my voice cracked. That's not true. He cut me off, his tone cold and firm. It's time to stop pretending. You knew this day would come. Laughter erupted from a corner of the room, and I saw one of the older women shake her head with a smirk. Whispers grew louder. Poor thing. She never saw it coming. The humiliation crushed me. My face burned, tears threatening, but I refused to let them fall. Instead, I stood frozen, exposed under the harsh lights, while they basked in stolen triumph. And then came the cruelest blow. A man from the back, one I didn't recognize, called out, "Tell her about the boy." The room went silent. My chest tightened. I turned sharply, my eyes locking on her. For the first time, her confident smile faltered. She recovered quickly, brushing it off with a laugh. But the damage was done. The name of a boy. The ghost I had found in those hospital papers. I walked out before the meeting ended, my legs heavy, my heart shattered. The whispers followed me all the way to the door. They thought I was defeated. But as I stepped into the cool night air, one thought burned inside me. That boy was real, and his existence was the crack in their perfect lie. The night after the town hall meeting, silence swallowed me whole. I didn't collapse into endless tears like people might expect. Instead, I moved through the house like a ghost, untouched by hunger, blind to the ticking clock. The kettle screamed on the stove until it boiled dry. The chickens clucked angrily in their pen until they fell silent. The farm was unraveling because I was unraveling. But my mind never stopped. It replayed the scene in the hall again and again. His cold dismissal, her triumphant smile, and that stranger's voice cutting through the crowd. Tell her about the boy. That voice became my anchor. It reminded me there was something bigger than humiliation, something hidden in plain sight. On the third night, sleep finally came in fragments. Dreams of a child running across the fields jolted me awake, drenched in sweat. I couldn't shake the image, so I searched the attic once more. Boxes toppled around me, papers scattered. That's when my fingers brushed against something I had missed before. A small notebook. The cover worn, the pages yellowed. Inside were hurried notes in her handwriting, dates, hospital visits, appointments. And then a page that made my stomach lurch. A sketch of a boy's face, crude but clear. Next to it, she had written only 2 words, "Keep hidden." I sank onto the floor, clutching the notebook. My hands trembled, not just with grief but with fury. She hadn't only abandoned him, she had planned it. Planned to erase him. The thought lit a fire inside me. My body was weak, my spirit battered, but in that moment, resolve rooted itself deeper than despair ever could. I cleaned myself up the next morning, not for them but for me. I brushed my hair, washed the dirt from my hands, and looked in the mirror. Hollow eyes stared back, yes, but there was a spark. A promise. They thought I was finished. But the truth wasn't theirs to bury anymore. I pressed the notebook against my chest and whispered into the empty room, "I'll find him. And when I do, you'll both lose everything." The photograph wouldn't leave my hands. I carried it everywhere, clutching it like a lifeline, staring at it until the edges wore thin. That boy's eyes followed me, haunting and demanding answers. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed to know. So, one morning, I drove to the county records office. My legs trembled as I climbed the courthouse steps, the photograph tucked into my jacket. I had never done anything like this before, but desperation makes you braver than you realize. The clerk gave me a tired smile when I asked for birth records. "Name?" she asked. I gave her the boy's name, the one I had seen in the hospital file months ago. She typed, her nails clacking against the keyboard before pausing, her brow furrowed. "Yes, we have him," she said softly. My chest tightened. "Can I see it?" She hesitated, then slid a printed sheet across the counter. My hands shook as I read. Born at Mercy Hospital, mother's name, hers. Father's name, left blank. I blinked, confusion flooding me. Blank? But why would his name not be listed if he was the father? The clerk leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Sometimes, if the father denies paternity, they leave it blank." I swallowed hard. Denied? My husband, the man who betrayed me, might have denied this boy's existence? But then my eyes caught another detail. The child had been placed under temporary guardianship just weeks after birth. The guardian's name made my knees buckle. Her father. The same man who had stood beside me in that barn, fury burning in his eyes when he saw his daughter with my husband. The world tilted. I stumbled outside, clutching the paper against my chest. The cold air hit me, but it couldn't clear the storm in my mind. If her father had taken custody, it meant she had abandoned the child. And if my husband's name wasn't listed, maybe he truly didn't know. I sat in my car for hours, the truth unraveling piece by piece. That boy wasn't just a hidden shame, he was the proof of everything. She had lied to everyone, even him. But where was the boy now? The record didn't say. Guardianship had ended years ago, but no adoption was listed. He had disappeared into a gap in the system. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, tears streaming down. My grief twisted into something else, rage. Not just at them, but at myself for being blind for so long. For the first time, I realized I wasn't powerless. That boy was my key. If I could find him, if I could prove their lies, everything they built would crumble. I wiped my tears and whispered into the empty car, "I will find you." The records haunted me, but they also gave me purpose. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had something to fight for. I started digging. I called old contacts, people who had worked at Mercy Hospital back then. Most doors slammed in my face, but one nurse, long retired, agreed to meet me at a diner outside of town. She slid into the booth across from me, her eyes wary. "You're asking about the boy?" she whispered, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "Yes," I said, clutching the photograph. "Please, I just need to know what happened to him." Her lips pressed into a thin line. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "The night he was born, there was a fight. Your husband showed up, demanding answers. She told him the baby wasn't his. He left, furious. But I never believed her. That child had his eyes." My breath caught, so he had known at least once. But why had he walked away? Why hadn't he fought? The nurse lowered her voice. 2 days later, the baby was gone, taken by her father. No adoption paperwork, no legal trail, just gone. I gripped the table, my knuckles white. Gone, vanished, like he had never existed. She reached for my hand, her gaze softening. "Whatever you're looking for, be careful. People don't hide children for no reason. I left the diner with my mind spinning. He had known, he had confronted her. But then he let it go. Did he really believe the lie, or had he chosen convenience over truth? I drove aimlessly until I found myself back at the farm. The sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of red, and then I saw them, him and her, standing near the barn, arguing. I parked far enough to stay hidden and rolled down the window. Their voices carried on the wind. "You promised me no one would ever find out," she hissed. "She's digging," he snapped back. "She knows more than you think." "You're the one who walked away," she shot back. "If you'd claimed him back then, none of this would matter now." My chest tightened. Claimed him. The boy. He grabbed her arm, his voice low but sharp. "Don't you dare throw that at me. You told me he wasn't mine." "And you believed me," she spat, "because it was easier." Silence, heavy, damning silence. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they would hear it. It was true. The boy was his. He'd been tricked, manipulated, maybe even blackmailed into silence. And now, years later, their lies were catching up to them. I drove away before they noticed me, my hands trembling on the wheel. For the first time, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt powerful. Because now I held something they couldn't control. The truth. And with that truth, I could destroy them both. The woman I was had died in that town hall, under the weight of humiliation. But the woman who rose from those ashes was someone else entirely. I started small. I cleaned the farmhouse, scrubbing away every trace of them. The kitchen table no longer smelled of her perfume. The bedroom no longer echoed with his lies. With every room I reclaimed, I felt a piece of myself return. Then I turned to myself. I cut my hair, short and sharp, a look I had never dared before. I bought clothes that weren't chosen for comfort or modesty, but for strength, blazers, boots, bold colors. When I looked in the mirror now, I didn't see a victim. I saw a fighter. But transformation wasn't just appearance. I needed power. I reached out to her father. He had been silent since that night at the barn, but when I showed him the photograph of the boy, his face cracked with guilt. "He was mine to protect," he whispered, "but I failed." "Where is he now?" I demanded. His eyes flickered, avoiding mine. "Safe, that's all I can tell you for now. But you're right. She lied. To him, to you, to everyone." I leaned in, my voice steady. "Then help me bring her down." For the first time, the old man nodded. Not as her father, but as an ally. I began documenting everything. Copies of the will, recordings of their conversations, testimonies from people who had seen them together. Every piece was a weapon, and I sharpened them carefully. Word spread quickly in town. When I walked down Main Street, people whispered, but now it was different. They saw the fire in my eyes, the way I carried myself. Pity turned into curiosity. Fear, even. One afternoon, I stopped by the same diner where I had met the nurse. This time, I didn't hunch or hide. I walked tall, heels clicking against the floor, every eye turning to me. And then I saw her. She sat in a booth with my husband, their heads close, their smiles smug. When they noticed me, their laughter died. I approached their table slowly, my steps deliberate. She leaned back smirking, but I saw the flicker of unease in her eyes. "You look different," she sneered. "Stronger," I corrected, sliding the photograph onto the table between us. "Recognize him?" Her face paled. My husband stiffened, his jaw tightening. Neither spoke. Their silence was louder than any denial. I leaned closer, my voice low but sharp. "You've built your lies on sand, and I've got the tide on my side." I turned and walked away, leaving them rattled in a way I had never seen before. For the first time, they were in control. I was. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning of their fall. The showdown came sooner than I expected. The county courthouse was crowded that morning. Word had spread. Land disputes always drew attention, but this one carried the scent of scandal. People filled the benches, eager to see me lose again. They wouldn't get that satisfaction. I walked in wearing the blazer I had chosen like armor, my head held high. My husband and his mistress sat together at the front, confident, smug, certain they would walk out as victors. But today, I had weapons they didn't know about. The judge called the case. She rose first, her voice honeyed and sharp. "Your Honor, the will clearly states that the Miller farm belongs to me. My father's signature proves it. My partner here has managed the land in good faith, while she flicked her eyes toward me, clung to what was never hers." Laughter rippled through the room. I didn't flinch. When it was my turn, I stood slowly, laying the photograph on the evidence table. My voice was steady, carrying across the hushed courtroom. This isn't just about land, this is about truth. Gasps followed as I revealed the hospital record, the guardianship papers, and finally the testimony signed by her father himself. The room buzzed like a hive. Her face drained of color. My husband shifted uncomfortably, his mask of control slipping. I looked straight at the judge. For years they lied. They concealed a child's existence, falsified documents, and used deceit to claim what was never theirs. This farm was entrusted to me through marriage, built with my labor and my family's sweat, and now I can prove their entire case is built on fraud. The judge studied the papers, then lifted her eyes. And the boy? I took a deep breath. Alive, hidden, but I intend to find him and ensure his story is heard. Today, though, this land must remain protected from those who tried to steal it. Her father stood suddenly from the back, his voice breaking. It's true. She lied. I sheltered the boy, but she abandoned him. Don't let her destroy this land too. Chaos erupted. She screamed at him, her voice shrill, desperate. My husband tried to silence her, but the judge's gavel struck like thunder. Order returned, but their facade was gone. The ruling came swiftly. The will was invalidated due to fraud and concealment. The farm was mine, legally and irrevocably. Relief crashed over me like a wave. The crowd that once pitied me now stared with awe, some even with respect. As deputies escorted them out, I caught his eyes one last time. There was no love left there, only defeat. She thrashed against the officers, screaming that she would come back, but her words fell empty. Justice had spoken. Outside, the sky was clear, the air crisp. For the first time in months, I felt free. The farm was safe. My name was cleared. And somewhere out there, a boy waited. A boy I now had the strength to find. I whispered to myself as I stepped into the sunlight, this isn't the end, it's my beginning. The farm feels different now. The silence that once pressed down on me like a weight has become comforting. Mornings are my favorite. I walk through the fields as the sun rises, the golden light touching every corner of land I almost lost. It feels like it's breathing with me again, alive and safe. Neighbors who once whispered now stop by with warm smiles and fresh pies. They no longer look at me with pity, but with respect. Some even say I inspire them, that I proved no matter how deep the betrayal, a woman can rise stronger. At night, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, the photograph of the boy resting in my hands. His eyes still haunt me, but now they don't bring pain. They bring purpose. I know he's out there somewhere, growing, living, waiting, and one day I'll find him. For the first time in years, I'm not afraid of the future. I've learned that love doesn't mean losing yourself. That strength doesn't always roar, it sometimes whispers in the quiet decision to keep going. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Maybe new love, maybe new beginnings. Maybe even the day I finally meet the boy who carries pieces of the truth they tried to bury. But tonight, under the stars above my farm, I know this much. I am free, I am whole, and I am finally, beautifully, at peace.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.